Hello, and welcome to this
Hello.
Unplugged
Hello.
today. All right, we're gonna start with prayer. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for your mercies. Thank you for everything. And yeah, we also thank you for celebration as well. Thank you that we celebrate with those who are celebrating an anniversary. Thank you for all the years. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you for your grace upon all our lives and their lives. We bless you. We pray we shall have a good night of fellowship in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Okay.
Amen. And thank you.
Cool, cool, cool. Okay. I've lost my. So we are doing Matthew 24. We stopped at a kind of intermediate point position last time. And so we'll just kind of pick up from there again. I just keep going in this Matthew 24.
Okay.
So on a random note, I think last time I feel like okay. So some of the stuff we're gonna do today, I know that like a lot of the things, some of the things that we are gonna discuss today are I don't know, they're a bit touchy and people have loads of views on them, and there are things that are yeah, I suppose loads of people have views on them, things that maybe people have been told or talked about since they were for a long time, and nobody has spent the time to actually try to think through those things. But the we'll just approach it in a good way. I think I feel like last time I kind of I would say I don't think I approached the discussion on talking of rapture in the right way. I feel like I kind of try to shoehorn my view on everyone, which is kind of not the way we do things. So I don't think that was great. But anyways, today whatever we discuss, I think that for me, I think what I want us to do, or the thing that I think we should focus on, is whatever people believe on one topic or the other, or one side or the other. Um, as long as we take the message that Jesus was trying to communicate in the middle of everything, whether you believe this or you stand on this side or you stand on that side, if you take the message, or if you get to the message, which is the main destination, then I think it's all good.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. So we're on Matthew 24. I think because we have to read another we do have to read another long verse, but I think I'll just read this quickly just so that we get ourselves on what we are actually talking about, and then we'll go from there. I know it's a bit long, but we just want to remember where we are meant to be. So I think as we go along, we'll have a little bit of a recap of where we stopped last time, because we're still on the same chapter. So Matthew 20. Okay, no, really starts from 23. So we're just gonna go back, start from 23 here. It says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you. How often I have longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were not willing. Look, your house is left to you desolate. For I will tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. 24. Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came up to him to call his attention to its buildings. Do you see these things? Do you see all these things? He asked. Truly, I tell you, not one stone will be left on another, every one will be thrown down. As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Jesus answered, watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah, and many will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Then you'll be handed over to be persecuted and put to death. You'll be hated by all nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in the winter or on the Sabbath, for then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one will survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there he is, do not believe it. For the false messiahs and prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anyone tells you, there he is out in the wilderness, do not go out, or here he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs gets tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the door. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will not pass away, but my words, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. This is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Two men will be in the field, one will be taking, the other left. Two women will be grinding with a handmill, one will be taking and the other left. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you also be ready, because the Son of Man will not will come at an hour when you do not expect him. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time. It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Truly, I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose that master is wicked and says to himself, my master is away a long time, and then he begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware. He will cut him to pieces and assign him to a place with the hypocrites where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Jesus goes on to tell two other parables. So the parable of the 10 virgins and the parable of the bag of gold, or the parable of the talents, which all kind of tell the same story. So we might just have briefly skim over them just to get the main point. Okay, we're back here. I don't know if anyone had any thoughts or reflection on some of the things we talked about last time.
For me, I'll need to like really contemplate, reread it, kind of thing, just to take
Hmm.
it. I can't remember much, but yeah, I need to really go in.
Yeah, cool.
That
So,
was you know, um, things that we kind of took as, for lack of a better word, gospel. Just needing to reread and reevaluate all the
yeah,
things that we think we know.
yeah, yeah. Yes, because just I think one of the things is like when we talk about the some of the theology of how end time theology, a lot of it is taken from this particular chapter, and some of that is mixed with some things in Daniel, some things in Revelation, some stuff in Thessalonians, and so that creates a mix of things that happens in end time theology. But I think people go about this, and even there's multiple ways to people interpret this particular chapter. Um, so I don't know, based on if you actually interpreting what is read here, that people go different ways with it. But I think that arriving at the destination of Jesus's message is more important than what your interpretation of it is per se. So I think for us it's more important to arrive at that destination. So
Yeah.
just there's something here I just want us to pick up on, because that's what a lot of times people focus. That's part of the focus of part of some of the end time theology, and then I will end up in what the whole point Jesus was making, because I want us to end up there and make sure that that's the focus of what we do today. Okay. So first things first, just to recap where we are, or how we've got here. Um, so we saw Jesus came through Jerusalem riding on a donkey. He goes to the temple because there's a whole scene there. The higher ups in the temple come out to question his authority. They try to trap him, asking him different questions, but Jesus is very clever, able to answer those questions. Obviously, they asked him the very touchy question about taxation, and we know, as we've talked about many times, how Romans don't play around when it comes to taxation. So Jesus manages to answer that question in a totally different way that he didn't expect. And then Jesus is still teaching, he's still hanging around in the temple. Before that, we see him curse a fig tree and it withers up. But we talked again how that is part of the whole prophetic thing of public demonstration to prove a point, right? So Jesus is back at the temple. He speaks in chapter 23. He speaks a lot against the Pharisees. And at the end of it, he talks about Jerusalem and he comes here. He said some pretty harsh words. The disciples say to him, they start admiring the temple. We've talked about the magnificence of the temple, the big, grand building that is unlike anything that we in our day have in terms of the place of importance that he has in these people's life, in their religious life, in their judicial life, basically in their life, in the Jewish life. And people coming from around the world during Passover to come offer sacrifices and all those things at the
Mm.
temple. The temple was a big source of pilgrimage in that time and in that world. Okay, so he's finished speaking, and yeah, the disciples are admiring the building, and Jesus says, yeah, all this stuff is going to be pulled down. It's all going to be pulled down. And they react by asking a question, okay, when is that going to happen? And what will be the sign of the end of the age? So last time we talked about the fact that we just went into a little bit of detail of, wait, how could they see the fall of the temple as the end of the age or the end of the world as it is? But in a sense, it is for them, right? It's the center of their life. Their life is centered around this. And it means a lot. If you read some of the Old Testament, the people had this belief that because the temple was there, the presence of God was with them. And we talked about how the temple came about.
Mm.
So Jesus then gives them a warning and tells them about the destruction of Jerusalem, essentially. So we took a brief detour to talk about historical events that actually took place, which Jesus predicted. Jesus here predicted the destruction of Jerusalem and the attack of Jerusalem, which happened, Jesus said, will happen in that generation. Well, that happened within 40 years. By 67 to 70 AD, we had the Jewish-Roman War, which the Romans, some of the probably one of the most formidable armies from historical times, essentially destroyed them. But there were two other Jewish Roman wars, and even the Emperor Hadrian, he actually got some of his soldiers to pull out the foundations of the temple because he didn't want these Jewish people were problematic. They caused a lot of revolt, and he just wanted to remove this thing. So he even renamed the city of, or one of the emperors renamed the city of Jerusalem to, is it Ailuno Kapali Kappa, whatever. They renamed the city of Jerusalem, renamed the whole Judean area to name them after the Philistines. So Syria, Palestina, which is where we get the name Palestine today. So that has come from this Jewish-Roman war, where they named it the area of the Syria and the Philistines, which is Syria, Palestina in Latin, I think. Okay, and then we talked about how the Christians here listened to based on what Jesus told them here when they saw the leaders of the Jewish revolts gathering and seeking refuge in the temple and behind the walls of Jerusalem. They fled to a city named Pella, which is in modern day Greece. So modern Greece, yeah. So you can go and read about the flight of Pella. I think I sent out I sent out the podcast series from The Rest is History. They do a good series on the Jewish revolt, and I sent out some links about the flight of Pella, which you can read about the Christians running away and going to settle there. And that's the Christians running away created a schism, or created a division between the Messianic Jews and the other Jews, because
Mm.
like the Christians abandoned. So we talked about some places. There have been writings about people placing Jewish people in their synagogues, placing curses on the Christians because of they saw them as traitors, people who abandoned them. And this time period, a lot of Judaism, different sects of Judaism did not survive it, right? The Essenes did not survive, the Sadducees did not survive. I think only the line of the Pharisees, the Rabbinic Judaism, that's the only line that really survived this time period. Okay. Now, there's just something Jesus says here that I want us. So we looked at some of the things here. Jesus says it's using a lot of things that are common to if you grew up in this world and you grew up in Jewish literature, all of these things, everything that Jesus here says here is not is you will not misunderstand it, right? Because this is just tracking with their scriptures, everything. So we talked about, we showed places in the when the prophets talk about the sun darkening, the moon not giving its light. This is part of how they um God's judgment coming upon a particular nation. So we saw an example of Ezekiel talking about the fall of Egypt, a prophet Joel talking about was it the fall of Babylon, and Isaiah. They use the same language. Jesus is just employing the same apocalyptic language. So apocalypse for in our world means like total mayhem, end of the world, disaster, right? But for apocalypse to them was revelation. So the book of Revelation is called it's called apocalypse essentially. It just means opening the curtain and seeing what is behind, right? Just behind what is going on. Okay. So there's one other thing here that I think people use to misunderstand that is also that. So let me just see. So after Jesus, so we ended here, and after we ended immediately after the days those after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. And then he says, then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds and one end of heavens to the other. Okay. Oh, now I can read this part too. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the door. Truly, I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Okay. Firstly, let's take wonder if anyone has any questions so far. Everybody just we're on the same page before we keep going. Good?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So there's one thing we know Jesus, everybody call, these days everybody says Jesus Christ and Christ Jesus and Jesus the
Yeah.
Messiah. But Jesus almost never called himself any of that stuff. He always called himself Son of Man. Right. What? Why?
Would that be something that they were familiar with? Like,
they're familiar with it, but what does it mean? Do we know where it comes from and what it means? That's fine. We haven't covered it yet, but that's fine. So okay. So here's a weird phrase here. So a lot of interpretations have used this to mean something, which is fine, but this is a different language that is quite familiar with other parts of the Bible. So he says, then all the peoples of the earth will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and glory. What does this mean? The Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and glory. So let me show you one other place Jesus used this.
Okay.
So we're in Matthew 26. We're going to get to this in 2 days, in a few sessions, but it's a very long one. So this is Jesus at the trial. Right? It says, those who arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest. The teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. The chief priest and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for false evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, two came forward and declared, "This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days." Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, "Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony these men are bringing against you?" But Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, "I charge you under the oaths by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." "You have said so," Jesus replied. "But I say to all of you, from now you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look, now you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" "He is worthy of death," they answered. Then they spit in his face and struck him with their fists. Others slapped him and said, "Prophesy to us, Messiah, who hit you?" Okay. Now, what did Jesus say that caused this reaction? He said, "Are you the Messiah?" He said, "You say so." He doesn't respond to that. But he says, "But I say to you, from now you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven."
Mm.
What is it? He's actually saying something, because look at the reaction of the high priest. He tore his clothes and said, "He has spoken blasphemy." Okay.
Mm.
So so Jesus always called himself Son of Man, essentially. So let's go where this comes from, and that's going to help us also understand a little bit of what Jesus. I mean, it's in line with what we've already said, but it's going to help us understand it a bit better. Okay.
Mm.
So Son of Man actually comes from the book of Daniel, and specifically Daniel chapter 7. Right. So
Mm.
I don't know if you guys know what type of book Daniel is, the book of Daniel. What type of book is it?
Actually, no. Not wisdom. Is it? It's not wisdom book.
No.
No.
So the book of Daniel, so essentially the book of Daniel is kind of a, a, a book that kind of takes turns. So it is about it's one of the books written about the people in exile, right?
Oh
So you
yeah.
remember
Yeah.
the Judeans, their cities
Sure.
destroyed, right, by the
Mm.
Babylonians. We've seen the prophets prophesy all of these things. So all
Mm.
those things have been linking. So their cities destroyed by the
Mm.
Babylonians, and then a lot of the guys are taken back to Babylon. So a lot of the cities in Babylon to serve as well, we call them serve in exile, but they are kind of slaves there. So they're forced to change their name, change their clothes, change their thing. Right. So the book of Daniel is essentially is talking, kind of looks at how do we remain faithful to our
Mm.
God, to Yahweh? How do we remain faithful while living in Babylon and forced
Mm.
to live under these conditions? So we kind of see different planes of it, right? It follows four friends, right? Daniel and his
Shadrach.
friends, Azariah,
Mm.
Mishael, and Hananiah, who are their names are changed, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel's name is changed to Belteshazzar as well.
Mm.
So it follows these guys, and they have to serve in administrative positions, right? And even as they're serving that, Babylon is continuing to grow, conquer more people, bring destruction to more places, and these guys are serving as admin, and they're wondering, God, what is all of this? Do you understand?
Mm.
Okay, so Daniel, we through the book we've seen different things happen that has got Daniel thrown into the lions, then his three friends thrown into the burning for the
Yes.
fiery furnace, right?
Mm.
Okay, now, so this is Daniel and the people of God living in the big bad empire. So Daniel has a dream, and let's just read the dream, and then luckily for us, there's an interpretation of it at the end, or some interpretation of it, but people have gone wild with this part of Daniel. Okay, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions passed through his mind as he was lying in bed. He wrote down the substance of his dream. Daniel said, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me were the four winds of heaven churning up the great sea. Four great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. The first one was like a lion, and it had four wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a human being, and the mind of a human was given to it. And there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had three ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, get up and eat your fill of flesh. After that, I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had four wings, those are like those of a bird. This beast had four heads, and it was given authority to rule. After that, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was a fourth beast, terrifying and frightening, and very powerful. It had large iron teeth, and it crushed and devoured its victims, and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and three of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a human being, and a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. He was clothing, his clothing was as white as snow, and his hair and his hair of head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. The river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousand upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were open. Then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain and his body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. The other beasts had been stripped of their authority, but were allowed to live for a period of time. In my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power, and all nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. Okay. But there's still more to read, but I just want to, before we get to the interpretation of the dream, whether anyone what everyone's thoughts are so far. Any thoughts?
Just the description of these Daniel's visions, the different beasts and things. We recently come across an Instagram account which is called the AI Bible. What it does, it takes all these descriptions and has AI generated images based
All
on
right.
in the Bible.
Yeah.
And when you see them, wow, is the only word that comes to mind.
Mm.
Yeah, because you read the descriptions and you don't really think about it when
Yeah.
you're just reading it as part of what you read it.
Yeah.
But when you see an image generated from that description and you think, if it really looked like that, then wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But okay, cool. But yeah, I mean, the thing though is that I mean, this sounds a lot like Revelation, doesn't it? This is how the
Yeah.
book of Revelation is. But this is the style of writing, and strangely enough, this writing is to bring hope to people, even though it sounds very violent and shocking. It's actually a hopeful message, which is weird. And we'll see how that plays out. Um, so let me just read the interpretation of Daniel's dream, and then we'll come to it. I, Daniel, was troubled in spirit, and the vision, obviously, you'll be troubled when you have such a dream. And the vision that passed through my mind disturbed me. I approached one of those standing there and asked him the meaning of all this. So he told me and gave me the interpretation of these things. The four great beasts are four kings that will rise from the earth, but the holy people of the Most High will receive the kingdom and possess it forever. Yes, ever and ever. Then I wanted to know the meaning of the four beasts, the meaning of the fourth beast, which was different from all the others and most terrifying with his iron teeth and bronze claw. The beast that crushed and devoured his victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on his head and about the other horn that came up, before which three of them fell. The horn that looked more imposing than the others, that had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I watched, this horn was waging war against the holy people and defeating them until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favor of the holy people of the Most High. And the time came when they possessed the kingdom. He gave me this explanation. The fourth beast is a fourth kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will rise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue three kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people and try to change the set times and the laws. The holy people will be delivered into his hands for a times and half a time. But the court will sit and his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then sovereignty, uh, power and greatness of all the kingdoms under heaven will be handed over to the holy people of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all the rulers will worship and obey him. This is the end of the matter. I, Daniel, was deeply troubled by my thoughts, and my face turned pale, but I kept the matter to myself. Okay. Um, any more thoughts after reading that? All right. Guess no one has any thoughts. So what we're gonna do is just try and this everything here has kind of been explained a little bit, but I think one of the things that's happened historically is that people have taken wild interpretations from this, right? People have tried to say or speculate on what the four kingdoms are, right? The four beasts, what kingdoms do they mean? So here the beast represents kingdoms and the horns represent kings of those kingdoms, right? So just quickly, just to, people reading this as Jewish readers of the time, they easily would track with this because in the scriptures they use beasts to represent evil kingdoms or evil empires, right? So just to give an example, there's an example in Isaiah. It is Isaiah 5. So we can see here Isaiah 5. So here in Isaiah is talking about the armies of Babylon, and he uses a lion to represent them, right? Their arrows are sharp and all their bows are strong. Their horses hooves seem like flames. Their chariot wheels like a whirlwind. Their roar is like that of a lion. They roar like young lions. They growl as they seize their prey and they carry it off with no one to rescue it. Right? So they talk about evil, bad empires as beasts, right? They use this language is represented across the Bible. And another one is just to look at the horns. If we look at Psalm 75, so you say, I choose the appointed time. It is I who judge the equity. When the earth and all its peoples quake, it is I who holds its pillar firm. To the arrogant I say, boast no more. And to the weak, do not lift up your horns. To the wicked, I say, do not lift up your horns. Do not lift up your horns against heaven. Do not speak so defiantly. So even though the horns themselves are not um, invariably evil, but they use horns to represent, like, people lifting up your horns to heaven. It represents like evil and wicked kings and stuff like that. So this is kind of image. So once, if you're reading this like as a Jewish person, you immediately track with some of the imagery that is used here. It's the same thing that happens when you read Revelation, right? Some of
Mm,
the imagery that is used there, easily you track with. But okay, let's go. So the idea here is that they are beast, evil kingdom and evil empires. These empires are trampling on God's people, right? They are trampling on the people of God. And
mm,
then in Daniel's dream, something. So let's just go back.
mhm,
So it described the four beasts, and this terrifying and frightening and very powerful large entity crushed and devoured his victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. Right? They are trampling
mm,
on people all over the place. Right?
mm, mm,
And then, as I looked, the throne was set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. Right?
mm,
And then I continued to watch the boastful. So the courts were seated and the books were opened. Right? So God is about to pass judgment. Because of the
mm.
boastful words the horns were speaking, I kept looking until the beast was slain and his body destroyed and thrown into blazing fire. The other beasts had been stripped of their authority, but were allowed to live for a period of time. In my vision, I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. And he approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and people of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. So, Son of Man, this part of the book is written in Aramaic, while some other parts of so the book goes between parts written in Aramaic, parts written in Hebrew. Son of Man is Ba Enesh, and it just means human one, right? It just means
Um,
human one. But this is a different kind of human one. So think about it. So after the beast is judged, this human one goes. So the coming of the Son of Man doesn't come to earth.
mm,
Do you guys see that? Just want you guys to see
doesn't
that.
come to that.
The coming of
Like
the
in a
Son of Man.
house.
When the Son of
Mm.
Man comes, what does he do in this? So, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven, he approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power all over the nations and all over and of every language. So, when the Son of Man, the coming of the Son of Man is when the Son of Man is glorified,
Oh,
right? So, the
yes.
big bad evil empires and the beast has been slain.
Yeah.
Then the Son of Man comes to
Comes.
sit in the presence of the Ancient of Days, of Yahweh, essentially, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So that is the coming of the Son of Man, the coming of the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. Now, another part of this that I should also point out real quick is that the clouds, when you say the clouds, is they're used like a thing to represent God's glory. So if you remember the children of
Mm.
Israel when they're
Oh,
traveling in the wilderness, God,
yeah.
the presence of God appeared to them like a
Cloud.
cloud in the daytime, fire
Mm,
at night. In so many other places, I can show you. Let's see. Forget Isaiah 19.
mm,
Let me see what chapter is it meant to be in. Just a minute.
okay.
So we see Isaiah 19. See the Lord rides on the swift clouds and is coming to Egypt. Right? It's kind of saying, showing
Mhm.
God, presence of God coming to us. So this is declared a prophecy against Egypt. So this is like talking about God's coming to judgment in Egypt. They use cloud to represent that. Um,
Mm.
Let me give one more example. Um, Joel chapter 2. Let's do Joel. So here it says, blow the trumpets in Zion, sound the alarms on the holy hill. Let all who live in the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. It is close at hand, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness, like dawn spreading across the mountain. A large and mighty army comes, such as I was never in Asia, such as never was in ancient times, nor will be in ages to come. Before them fire devours, behind them a flame blazes. Before them, the land is like the Garden of Eden. Behind them, a desert waste. Nothing escapes them. They will have the presence of horses. They gallop like chariots. Do, 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 do. With a noise like that of chariots that leap over the mountains, like a crackling fire consuming and stubble, like a mighty army drawn up for battle. And so you kind of still get the imagery here of you know that appearance of God. The same thing that we've seen in Matthew 24. Okay.
Mm. Mhm.
Right. Cool. So let's go back to Daniel. So
Mm.
I don't know if anyone has any questions. The coming of the Son of Man is the Son of Man being glorified, right?
Yeah.
Going to
Yeah.
see the presence of God and giving authority all over the earth.
Yeah.
That is what the coming of the Son of Man is.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Any questions? Anyone? Any questions? Anyone? Anything that's we need to. I'll be good if it's good if we're all on the same page. All good. All right. Cool.
Mhm.
So we are there. We'll go back to Matthew 24. So Jesus says, after talking about, so immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Same language that we've already heard. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and all the people of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and glory. You can see the language from that picked strip from Daniel. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, and one from the heavens to the other. You can see again the trumpet call like we've seen in the book of Joel just now. All right.
Mm.
Okay. So now we've read that. Let's also go back to Matthew 26 and read this again there.
Mm.
Where did I have Matthew 26 open? There you go. So he says to him, then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, are you not going to answer? What is this testimony these men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, I charge you under the oaths by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God. You have said so, Jesus replied. But I say to all of you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One, coming on the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, he has spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look now, you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? And they said, he is worthy of that. Okay. Do you guys understand what has just happened here?
I'm trying to understand it. Is it so? Is the part that they're not sure about the fact that Jesus, the Son of Man, is sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're familiar with, from what we've discussed, they're familiar with the whole process of the glorification of glory.
He's sitting at the right hand is way, remember the disciples came and asked Jesus, want to sit at your right hand one? That's where that's you sitting on glorified positions, right?
Position. Oh, fine. You have
So
said
it's
so.
kind of it's the same thing. But do you
Okay.
understand what has just happened here? I just want to know if anyone understand what has just happened here.
So I think they've now have reason to charge Jesus because he's claiming to be the Son of Man.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. But look at the reaction of the high priest. He tore his clothes and shouted blasphemy.
Yeah,
So
because he's outraged. Like, how do you think
he's
that
out.
you are
Yeah.
this person?
So, but let me give you one example from our time. I was trying to think of a reference that would fit, but I couldn't think of one. So I'm going to try a few and see if they land, because I know we have multiple
Okay.
cultures influencing all of us. So it's going to be
Yeah.
hard. So just imagine if I said, let me try from a weird one. Let's see if this one works. If I said, I will huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down, who am I and who are you?
Oh, we're the pigs and you're the
Yeah.
wolf.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If I'm at a comic, let's say Comic Con, and I'm wearing a Batman costume, and I said to you, "Come be my sidekick, let's fight crime together." Who am I and who are you?
Out of my league.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
Somebody must know that one.
V, V,
Robin.
VNC.
B and
Batman
Z.
and Robin.
Tolu.
Bat-
Yes. Oh, yes. Good.
Batman and Robin. Okay, right.
Oh, what?
Jesus says
Okay.
now. Okay, so now let's go back here. Let's go back here. Jesus is standing in front of the most the power of Israel. You understand?
Mhm.
The high priest, all the
Yeah.
Sanhedrin council, all the people with these people know the scriptures like the back of their hand. And Jesus says to them, you will see the coming of the Son of Man. You will see. Do you understand?
So they're like, wait, how are we gonna see that? Are we gods then? What do you
No,
think
no,
we
no,
are?
no, no. Who
No?
else is in the story? Do you read the
They're
story?
the they want the people in the
If Jesus is the Son of Man,
Yeah.
who are they?
angels. I don't even know anymore. Wait.
They're
Wait.
the beasts.
Oh.
They represent the beast.
Oh, I thought of it, but I wasn't sure. Like I was
Yes,
like,
even you were like, no, they can't be. He can't be staying there.
Yeah, they can't be
Yeah.
saying that.
They are the beast. He is the Son of Man. They are the ones that are gonna get defeated.
that makes, you know what, that makes sense because I was thinking it, but I was like,
Essentially, when you crucify, so basically, look at what's happening, right? These people have converged
oh yeah,
to do a sham trial
yeah.
to try and kill a man
Who-
that they know hasn't committed any crime.
Oh my,
Do you understand?
yeah,
They're trying to find reason to kill someone that hasn't committed any crime. The people that came before the next day, the people that testified before say, oh yeah, he said he's going to destroy the temple and build it up in 3 days.
yeah,
What is that? That's nothing. They know that's nothing, right?
yeah, yeah.
So are you the Messiah? Loads of people have claimed to be Messiah before. Jesus never really calls himself the Messiah. He always says Son of Man. But he then says to them, you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds, right?
Ah,
He's essentially calling them the beast,
the beast, the beast.
right? And I think okay, let's go back
Yeah,
to
let's go back.
Daniel 24,
Yeah,
right? So
Yeah, let's see it again.
yeah.
let's just to Daniel, so not Daniel 24, Matthew 24.
Oh, okay.
Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and glory. Right? So
Yeah.
this is as you can see the footnotes, kind of
Mm,
tribes of the land. So
yeah.
some people translate it, and I tend to subscribe to the view that it's tribes of the land. So he's referring to the tribes of Israel, and this is talking about the destruction of Jerusalem and judgment upon Jerusalem.
Yeah.
They will mourn why would they mourn when they see the Son of Man coming in glory?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Why would they mourn? Because basically their kingdom has become one of the beasts.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
right? Their
Yeah.
kingdom has become one of the beasts.
Oh my days,
So,
yeah.
when the moment that they all join up to crucify Jesus, that is the moment that they begin to put events in place to get the Son of Man glorified. Okay, right. So I know a lot of times there are loads of different theories where people have used this coming of the Son of Man on the clouds. It's like, oh, all the Christians will get caught up and brought meet Jesus in the clouds and all that stuff. That's whether that is going to happen or not. That's neither here nor there. But what here, that is not what this is saying.
That's what we're saying, yeah.
That's not what this is saying,
So
right?
mm-hmm.
Because this tracks with the tradition. So this is the where Jesus. So this Son of Man is in the book of Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel. Yeah, let's go back.
In the book of Daniel, the Son of Man is a human one. The Son of Man represents the people of God who have been trampled upon, by the beast over and over again. And then that Son of Man is then glorified when the beast is defeated and slain. Not all the beasts, right? Some of the beasts are allowed, they are seized, and their power and authority is taken from them. But the chief, the main one, the one that was quite aggressive, that one is destroyed and slain and chucked in the fire. So it isn't the thing about people meeting Jesus in the clouds that there'll be people have said, oh, there'll be time of tribulation and all the Christians will get caught up in the air with Jesus in the clouds. Now, I'm not, this is not this, but Matthew 24 is not about that. That's not Jesus is talking about. He's passing judgment to Jerusalem. Okay. Right. So now I'll come back to this when I talk about the points that we need to not miss from these stories or from these things. So just let me add one last block before I come to that point. Okay.
Okay.
Right. One small random thing. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I think it's interesting. So I'm just gonna do it. Okay. So a lot of people, there's been a lot of speculation about the sign of the Son of Man in heaven.
Oh.
Right. So now, of course, a lot of people have speculated that this is something that will happen in the future. Some say, but a lot of people believe this is what has happened with the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple and all that happened there. Right. Okay. Now, randomly, so there's this book written by, there's this book called The Histories, written by a Roman called Tacitus, and he writes something weird in it. So he writes about the conquest of Judea in it. So yeah, you can find some of these books online. So in verse 13 of his book on the conquest of Judea, let me see if I can make it bigger. Oh no, have I lost track of where I am? Oh, I've lost track. Okay, let me just make it bigger and bigger. Can you guys see it easily now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let me see if I can go down. So, Conquest of Judea. So this is a book by a Roman historian from back in the day called Tacitus. He's quite an important historian. So yeah. Okay. So in it, he writes this. So go to the conquest of book 5, the conquest of Judea. And in verse 13, he writes this weird thing. Various portents had occurred at that time. But so sunk in superstitions are the Jews, and so opposed to all religious practice that they think it wicked to avert the threatened evil by sacrifices of vows. So the Jewish people, they don't subscribe to any other person's religion, or they don't worship any of the Roman gods. They only stick to their own thing, right? Embattled armies were seen to meet in the sky with flashing arms, and the temple shone with sudden fire from heaven. The doors of the shrine, he calls it shrine, the doors of the shrine suddenly opened, and a supernatural voice was heard calling the gods out. And at once there began a mighty movement of departure. Few took alarm at all this. Most people held the belief that, according to the ancient priestly writings, this was the movement at which the East was fated to prevail. They will now start forth from Judea and conquer the world. This enigmatic prophecy really applied to Vespasian and Titus. Do you guys see, understand what's been written?
Partly.
So, okay, let me just basically, I'm just putting this in there just for the fun of it. But so this is a Roman historian, Tacitus, he wrote this long time, ages ago. But he's saying at that time when Judea was conquered, that the Jews saw signs. They saw signs in the sky, like so he said they saw the embattled armies were seen in the sky with flashing arms, and the temple shone with sudden fire from heaven. This is what
Saw that.
Hmm?
Who
They
saw
saw
that?
it at that time. So this is what
Okay.
this is what the Roman historian, he's not Jewish, he's not Christian, he wasn't Jewish or Christian.
Okay.
This is his account of the destruction of Judea. And so he's writing an account of what people in Judea actually say or what they saw. So they
Okay.
apparently saw armies meet in the sky with flashing arms, and the temple shone with sudden fire from heaven. The doors of the shrine of the shrine, he's calling the temple shrine. So again, he doesn't subscribe to Jewish anything. The doors of the shrine suddenly opened, and a supernatural voice was heard calling the gods out, and at once there began a mighty movement of departure. Few took alarm of this. Most people held the belief that, according to the ancient priestly writings, this was the movement at which the East was fated to prevail. So I know the other historian, Josephus, which he actually mentions this to when he surrenders. Josephus was another Jewish person who was fighting. He was fighting the Roman armies, and they got surrounded. And when they got surrounded, all him and his gang of people, they decided to commit suicide.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, but
They talked about it in the
oh,
history.
you listened to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Josephus talked the other. So they basically, because they were Jews and they cannot commit suicide, they decided to pair themselves up, and this one will kill this one and all that. But then Josephus managed to talk some of the others out of it, and they surrendered. And then
Yeah.
Josephus tells the armies and tells them that there's a prophecy from the Jewish realm that their king is going to rule, not just defeat the Judeans, but dominate. A king from the east is going to dominate the world, and that king is Vespasian, right? So
Yeah.
So that's what is also written in this book by Tacitus. And he also mentions this as part of they saw a sign in heaven. So some people have taken to this as linking to what Jesus said here, the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. I don't know. But I just think it's interesting to just note that, So some people saw this thing as the sign. So some people will say, oh, this was the sign of the Son of Man that appeared at the time. So people who are looking for further signs of this event happening, no, it has already happened. But
I see.
That's not the point. Okay. So we'll just read off. So this second part now, some there are people, some scholars, some believe that, so Jesus, when Jesus finishes here in verse 35, he's talking about the destruction of the temple and Jerusalem, and then he's now talking about his second coming here, while some people believe all of this is just talking about the second coming.
Yeah.
Some people believe that, so some people believe this is everything is talking about the second coming. Okay, I don't necessarily subscribe to that. Some people believe that everything here is talking about the destruction of the temple down to verse 51, while others think that is divided. That is talking about the destruction of Jerusalem. This is talking about second coming. But I don't think we should get bogged down in that. I think we should get bogged down in the main point, anyways. So he goes on to say, but about the hour, day or the hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son of Man, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so to be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, the people were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what will happen until the flood came and took them all away. This is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. The two men will be in the field, one will be taken away and the other left. The two women will be grinding with a handmill, and one will be taken away and the other left. Right? So based on this interpretation, the people taken away are not the people of God. Can we agree on that part?
I'm not convinced, but okay.
No. Just see what it says. For the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage up to the days of Noah. And they knew nothing about what will happen until the flood came and took them away. Who did the flood take away?
It took away.
Okay, the people that were in the eating
All
and
right.
drinking.
That's
I
it.
see.
This is how it will be with the coming of man. Two will be in the field, one will be taken away, the others left. Two women will be grinding in the hand mill, one will be taken away, the others left. So if
Oh
we
yeah, I see.
turn this around, that it is the God's people will be taken away, and
Mm.
we're
Yeah.
basically doing scriptural gymnastics, right?
Mhm.
Therefore,
Debunking.
keep watch, because you do not know what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of the night the thief was coming, he will keep watch. I will not have let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. And then he tells this first parable, which links to two more parables in the next verse, the next chapter. Okay, I just want us to just leave with what we should get from all of this. I think that's the most important point. First thing, let's go to Daniel 7 and the beast, right? So the image, they use beast to represent violent kingdoms, violent situations, violent kingdoms. And it's very important because beasts, and these beasts, wild animals, like a lion, a shark, they cannot be reasoned with, right? If they just operate on instinct, right? If a lion
Yeah.
wants food or a shark smells blood, you're not going to say, hey, look, lion, there's some pack of hyenas over there. I've got some goats over there that you should go for. The lion is going to devour you. It's not, the lion is hungry, and if a shark smells blood, it's coming after you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't reason with them when they operate by instinct. Now, there's a difference with us as human beings, right? We have the ability to, immediately you feel, whatever you feel at some point, you have the ability to have self-control, right? You can reason beyond that of an animal. Yeah, there are similarities with animals, but we can reason, and we have emotional states that are different to an animal. So
Yeah.
sometimes when they do psychological evaluation of people, sometimes they're able to tell, when they're able to tell people who have like psychopathic tendencies, it's like you can tell that people are beginning to almost not even let that human emotion is no longer there, right? But it doesn't always have to get that far. So
Yeah.
but basically the beast operates on self-interest.
Impulse.
self-preservation, right? I'm hungry, so now I get food, right?
So
I'm
interesting.
I feel this, so I do this. I do this, so I do this, right? And it is interesting that when we talk about the gift of the Spirit, one of the gift of the Spirit is self-control,
Self-control. Yep.
right? But here's another thing I also want us to just
Yeah.
add to this part. So we see Genesis chapter 4. After the fall, one of the first stories we're told is the story of Cain and Abel, which has a lot of things inside it. So, but just look at what happens to what Cain is told before Cain murders his, the brother. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have, but you must rule over it." So
All
it's
over it.
describing sin as a beast that is crouching at the
Mm.
door, waiting for Cain.
Mm.
And what does Cain do? Cain gives in to the beast to
Yeah.
take control over him. So the beast is
Animalistic.
the beast is having desire to take control over you. But when we get the
Mm.
gift of the Spirit, we have self-control, right?
Yes, sir.
So,
Interesting.
and now we go back to this situation with Jesus, right? These people, Jesus has come, and Jesus is a threat to their business. Jesus has spoken against all the corrupt and evil things that they are doing, right? He has spoken across the city, the town. For their own self-interest, they're trying to get rid of Jesus. Not because Jesus has done anything, but for their own self-interest. They've created this whole trial and everything just to get rid of him, right? So they're trying to preserve their own interest. And I know a lot of times people get focused of trying to say, oh, does this beast represent the Roman Empire? Does it represent the Alexander the Great? Does it represent this? Does it represent, or the horn? Does the horn represent Alexander the Great, or all that? And there's all that speculation. But I think one of the things that I think that is very important to take from it is that the beast is always going to be there trampling on God's people, right? The Israelites, or these people in these Israelites people, they didn't listen to all the prophets that God sent to them, and they killed them. And as Jesus said, they keep saying, oh, if we are around in those days, we would have listened to the prophets and we wouldn't have done that. But there's those same people that are saying that are the same ones that doing the sham trial to get rid of Jesus. Right? Because you're always acting in your own self-interest, but you cannot even see it because the beast is inside of you taking control of what you're doing. Whenever, as individuals, we just act, everything we do, we act out of our own self-interest, we're going to hurt people, we're going to trample on God's people. And now, why the Caiaphas, the high priest, he's so outraged because Jesus has called the people of the religious establishment. Jesus has called them and said, "You guys, you and your nation of Israel that you represent, you guys are the beast right now because the beast is in control of you because you are just acting out of your own self-interest." And he's outraged by that because what happens a lot of the times, right? In the Old Testament, we see the Jeremiah say the same thing to them. They say, "Oh," Jeremiah says to them, "Oh, look, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, because the temple of the Lord is here. God is with us." Right? And the high priest, because he is the high priest, because he sits in the temple, because he has a seat in this and he goes into this and that, God, he believes God is with him. So whatever he does, God is with him. And then people can fall into this trap of thinking that even when I'm acting in my own self-interest and trampling upon others and trampling up against God's people, God is with me because of the position I'm in, because I go to church, because I am this, because I preach, because I teach Bible, because I do this, or because I do that, because I pray every day, or because this. Do you understand? Like we can fall into the we can fall into that habit of thinking that way, that God co-signs everything we do because of the title or the positions that we find ourselves in. So this is how the people of God become the beast as well. Just like Babylon, they have become Babylon.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you would just think that the beast has to be some like outrageous wicked power. And it would just just hearing it sounds like this is ridiculous to think that the people like regular people or people who are, I guess, religious in that sense
Yeah,
could still be the beast.
but here's the thing though. They were trampling of people. So if you look at if you think about the people who are just quoted as evil and what these people were doing, the outcomes are the same.
Mm,
You see all the marginalized people Jesus goes about meeting. You see all the suffering, all the people with different ailments and different sufferings, and all the poverty and different things happening at the time. These people, they were all they all caused that. They were all part of that. The pain the people were suffering, they were part of that. The oppression that the people were suffering.
yeah. No,
So
you're right.
yeah.
You're right. It's just
So,
interesting because I wouldn't have thought to look at them because they're not
mm,
like the
mm,
political power in charge, basically.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So even the same when you go and read in the prophets, um, you see the same thing. The prophet Joel is accusing them of, you know, poverty, of trampling on people's rights. There's no justice. Just the prophet Amos says, "Let justice roll down like a mighty stream." Like that very important passage, because God is tired of your religious. We've read loads of this in Isaiah, in Amos, in Joel. God is tired of all your religion because there's no justice. God,
Mm.
Jeremiah said the same thing. Jeremiah got beaten and arrested, and I was listening to a lecture on Jeremiah's work, and he kind of put a new framing in my mind of, Jeremiah saying, "Before I was formed in my, God said, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you."
Mm-hmm.
We use it as a positive, and which it is. But if you look at it in the framing of Jeremiah's word, that was not Jeremiah didn't see it necessarily as a good thing, because
Why?
you've selected me for this thing that will make my life miserable. So God, you knew me. But we use it as, oh God, you knew me and you've picked me. But we use it as, okay, but it's always for something good. Oh, you've picked me to have something glorious.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You
yeah. I
understand?
see.
But Jeremiah
Yeah.
was like, no, you picked me to have to
To
go
suffer like this.
who are going to beat me, who are going to stone me, who are going to arrest me, who are going
Yeah.
to, and at the end of the day, they will not listen to me, and I'm going to suffer. Why? But
Mm.
in that though, Jeremiah still finds way to have hope and thank God, and like his writing is quite nuanced, but is interesting. But he kind of like, God, you kind of, he uses a weird word, but says, God, you kind of seduced me into this work.
Mm.
You forced my hand into this thing. So it's not necessarily that positive that God has selected. Well, I won't say is this positive, but it's not necessarily the most attractive thing God has
Yeah.
selected him. So before I was formed in my mother's womb, you knew me, yeah, but you selected me for this.
Mm.
You know, you didn't select me to be King David or something. You selected me to be Jeremiah to prophesy to people who are not going to listen, who are going to beat me up, arrest me,
Yeah.
stone me, and I'm going to feel all the pain because I'm prophesying on behalf of God. Doesn't mean I don't feel the pain. It doesn't mean my body
It's
doesn't cut. It
true.
doesn't mean I don't bleed. Right? So
Mm.
there is all of that. So all through time, and this comes down to our world today, right? All the things Jesus says here about nation against nation, wars, this, that, those are still happening till today. And sometimes we can think that because we are Christian people, or even blow it up out. So we talk about the horns and the beast, but we can think that, okay, because we're Christian people or because we are from a Christian nation, God is co-signing everything that we're doing, right? So look at, if you watch the news now, look at what America and Israel are getting up to. Bombing people at will. This is you can call them new kingdoms, new empires that look exactly like the beasts in Daniel. But America is the most Christian nation on earth. So, right? So they can say God, God is in God we trust is on their money.
God we trust.
They have
They're the
guns.
I
biggest,
literally was gonna say that.
yeah, but they're the biggest sellers of weapons in the world. They are funding wars all over the place. Nobody has been in more wars than the
USA, man.
United States, right?
Yeah.
So more people have suffered under, more children, babies, men, women have been killed by American weapons than any other,
Country.
right? So
Yeah.
there's this thing that because our president says God bless America, and because our president says this, we now become the Christian nation. Look at a lot of Christians, they always side with Israel, no matter what Israel does, because that's God's own, right? But look at what Israel is actually doing,
Doing.
right? So there is that threat, that thing to believe. But again, we take it big, but also takes to us as well. When we act in our own self-interest, and we could trample upon God's people, we can trample against other people in our society, our community, in our homes, and we might think because I go to church, I'm doing the right thing, right? I heard
Yeah.
about a testimony. Someone came up in church to give a testimony where the person went to an exam, and when the person got the paper, the exam paper put in front of, I think it was a she. I'm not. I can't. Yeah, it was a she. And when she got the exam papers put in front of her, she realized she has a problem. She doesn't know much, so she decided to pray. God help me. After praying, she was able to notice that the person sitting to the side of her, this paper was visible. So she was able to effectively just copy that person's work the whole time and then pass the course. So the person came to church to give testimony to thank God. So you can see that this is not a made up story. This is an actual thing that
This is
happened.
the real story.
This is a real story that
Bruh.
really happened. But we
That's
can
mad.
get to a point where even when we do wrong, because we prayed, because we're Christian, God is co-signing whatever nonsense that we're doing. And there's so many examples across the Bible where God is like, nah. So we need to be, on a bigger scale and on a personal scale, we need to be mindful of the fact that there's the beast waiting to take on hold of us as human beings, as communities, as nations, right? We can be people that are trampling upon others because of our own self-interest, right?
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
So that's the first thing that I wanted. So I think it's important to learn from that story. The next part of it, I think, is, well, Jesus talks a lot about. So this is important to say. One of the things that's happened a lot, especially in Christian times, if you've been in church a long time, you've heard of people who are what they call them specialists in end time prophecy and end time signs and all that stuff. They're very good at reading the signs to tell you that the end is near and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There are many ways, all this has been going on for a long time. And this is the point where the misreading of this is very dangerous. Jesus says to them, the day or the hour, no one knows. Now, if you want to take this as Jesus is talking about the destruction of Jerusalem, cool. If you want to take it as the destruction of Jerusalem and the end of the age, the disciples see it as the same thing. You can say that. If you want to break it up, that this is Jesus now talking about, the end of the world and all that, that's fine. That's totally up to you. However, more importantly, Jesus says, the day or the hour, no one knows. Right? So
That's true.
And
Mm.
before this, Jesus goes two times and multiple times to talk about false prophets who will come and
Mm.
tell people that, you know, people that, a lot of times people have I saw in there's one of the actually the guy who was doing the lectures that I was listening to, or I was following. He was on a podcast, and someone sent in a question saying that they have a friend who is selling, but this was 2 years ago. The friend is selling this friend was selling her possessions because she believed that the rapture was coming soon, and there were some items that she owned that she felt she would, if the rapture happens and her family finds out that she was in possession of those things, she will be it will make her feel embarrassed. So she was getting rid of her possessions because the rapture was coming. So they've done some new calculation. So you can see this kind of things, like this has been happening from time. If you can read about the Stephen Miller and the Millerites, that
Oh.
movement, which that is the move. So it's a guy who predicted the end of the world in 18. What year did he predict the end of the world?
That's funny. In 18 something. We're in 2024.
Yeah, Millerites. So there you go. These are the Millerites. Yep, there you go. He predicted the prophecy that the second advent of Jesus Christ. If you can see,
Can you zoom in a bit, please?
Let's please.
can you see that?
Yeah.
So his name, yeah, William Miller. So in
Mm.
1831, he declared he had done a new calculation that the second coming of Jesus would occur in between 1843 to 1844.
Mm.
So they came in, they had things. So this is based on something he read in Daniel chapter 8. At first, he said it was going to be in March 1843. Then, when he came to March 1843 and the end of the world didn't happen, he said, no, I mean, there's a mistake in the calculation. It's predicting a whole year. So they waited till 1844 and nothing happened. And then he's like, okay, guys, I'm sorry,
I
I'm
don't know.
I got it wrong. But
At least
his
it's
followers
honest.
refused to give up, right? So I don't
Mhm.
know. This is a Wikipedia page, but you can read it in more reliable sources. But if you go down, let me see. This movement this is the movement that gave rise to, here you go, Seventh-day Adventists, right? It is out of, so
Mm.
but you can go
Mm.
read about it in more reliable sources. But it is out of third Millerite group that the Seventh-day Adventists
Mm.
came, and then the Jehovah's Witness also came
Goodness.
out of that as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that from actually one of my colleagues who's a 7-day Adventist, because I didn't know that they actually had like the calculations and they had like a special book that they read, like this woman or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So they came out of this Millerite movement that the world was meant to end in 1843.
Mm.
So people that come up with these calculations, there have been many others since then. And people that come up with these calculations and people that spend time doing end time prophecies and all those things, they're essentially just not listening to what Jesus said here. Just leave it.
Mm.
Just leave it. That's not your job. What should be there? So Jesus says that, people didn't know. The time of Noah, people were going about their business, they didn't know. Just keep watch and be faithful. So Jesus then tells three parables about people being faithful. Now, who are they faithful to? I think sometimes in some of these parables, people make the mistake of thinking that the king or the master is God, but it isn't always. The aim of the parable is talking about faithfulness, right? So
Mm.
he says, who then is the wise and faithful servants whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time? So the first one, Jesus gives a parable about someone who was put in charge, and he thought his master is going to be away for a long time, and then the master comes back unexpectedly, and he had been mistreating the others and he had become a drunkard and just doing all manners of weird things, right?
Mm.
And then he got treated well. The master cut him up to pieces, threw him out to the hypocrites and all that stuff. Think
Mm.
about whether the master is God or not. It's about whether the servant was faithful to the master. right?
Mm.
And there's, it goes on to tell another one about the 10 virgins. I think we can look about on it in more detail next time, but
Mm.
let's see, what's the time? Yeah, I'll just quickly read it. So at that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom.
Mm.
Five of them were foolish and five were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps and did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in their jar along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourself." This is at midnight. Who is selling oil at midnight? But while they were on their way to buy oil, the bridegroom arrives. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others also came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly, I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore, keep watch. You do not know the day or the hour." Again, the point of this is you don't know the day or the
You
hour.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready, watch. Just keep going in your faith, right? Keep going.
Mm.
The same thing with this, this one, the
It's
bags of
interesting.
gold. We've looked at this parable, but the Luke version, right, where
Yeah.
the guy is giving, um, well, he gives one 5 bags of gold, another one 2 bags, another one one, each according to their ability. He went on his way. The man had received 5 bags of gold, went out and put the money to work and gained five more. Also, the one with 2 bags of gold also gained two more. But the one who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled account with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other five. The master said, "You entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I've gained five more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things, but I'll put you in charge of many. Come and share your master's happiness." Then the man with 2 bags of gold also came. "Master, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained two more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Then the one who had received 1 bag of gold, "Master," he said, "I knew you were a hard man, harvesting where you had not sown and gathering where you had not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you." His master replied, "You wicked, lazy servants. You knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gathered where I had not gathered scattered seed. Well, then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I return, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken away from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where they'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So again, we've looked. There's another version of this same parable used in Luke, but Jesus uses it in a different way, right? He uses it when Zacchaeus talks about Zacchaeus, when Jesus has this meeting with Zacchaeus, and Zacchaeus says, "Oh, all the people I've wronged, I'm going to give all my money away to them." And then Jesus tells this parable, essentially telling Zacchaeus, "Look, it's all well and good to do that, but when your masters come back, what are they going to do to you? Right? Who are you going to be? Who are you going to be faithful to? Right? Because there's
Mm. Mm.
a penalty for your faithfulness, right?
Mm.
So in this way, Jesus had this as these three parables come together to talk about faithfulness, staying the course. And if we go back to chapter 24, so that those parables are not about money, about getting interest. It's about staying faithful. Who are you faithful and who are you loyal to? Does time take your faithfulness away? Do you stay
Mm.
to your cause over time, or and here Jesus says, yeah, Many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will go cold. But who stands firm to the end will be saved. So I think that falls in line with that. Like loads of people, they are gonna lose their faith. Things will get tough, right? Things will get tough. But Jesus is looking for the people that are gonna be faithful until the end. Now, what does the end mean? We don't know. Does the end mean that I don't know? Whatever the end means, that's what it means, right? But the aim of this thing, yeah, I know that's the sentence that is just roundabout, but the aim of this is about faithfulness.
Yeah.
The job is not to be predicting when the end is gonna come, when is this and that is gonna happen, blah 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 blah. Your end is not that's not the aim here.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Our aim is not. So for me,
Yeah.
whenever people start all this end time reading of the signs and all that, I just turn those things off. I don't have energy for that. I don't attend to that. I don't care. Am I allowing the beasts of this world to take control of me?
Mm,
Right? As I examine my actions, what am I doing? Am I allowing the beast of this world to take control of me? And
yeah.
sometimes, and a lot of times, if we look back at our actions and the things that we're doing and what we're supporting and where we're putting our interest, sometimes we think that because we go to church or do that, we we are in the right, we're doing the right thing, but it's not necessarily the case.
True.
And I think, however, where we go with any of these things, as long as we come to those points that Jesus was trying to make here, I think that's the most important thing. Staying faithful to the cause. Things will get hard, things will get difficult, and just because you call on the name of God doesn't mean that
Yeah.
life will be easy,
Mm,
right? Doesn't mean that
yeah.
life will be easy. Jesus said that he told his disciples they will be persecuted, they will be beaten, there will be this, there will be that. And if we look at the life of the prophets, they didn't have it easy. Jesus is heading to a situation where they got crucified.
Mm,
This again is why this part of the Bible is linked so heavily with Daniel, the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel is about people being faithful in Babylon. They're living in a beastly empire. They're living in a world where they are there going, wait, what's going on? And
yeah.
and there's something here that is quite interesting. And this is one thing that one of the prophets wrestled with as well. Because the prophet Habakkuk, he saw this and just thought that, wait, God, you're using the armies of Babylon. The armies of Babylon are destroying Jerusalem to enact
But
judgment
they're
because
no good themselves.
people. So if you're wondering that, like, wait, the Romans destroying Jerusalem,
Jerusalem. Yeah.
it's like, wait, why? They're awful themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
Habakkuk wrestled with that long before we had the opportunity to. But if we look at the book of Daniel, he says all these empires come, and if you think about it and just think about the Roman Empire at that time, how big and powerful this empire was. Just to think about the fact that now Roman Empire is consigned to history. That's crazy. You
Yeah.
look at the British Empire. They say the sun never set on the British Empire.
Yeah.
Well, now it rains every day in Britain, right? The sun never set on the British Empire. Just think about the people who were trampled by the British Empire, and now
It's
it's
similar
nothing.
to nothing. Yeah.
There's the French Empire. Napoleon dominated Europe. Napoleon was defeated, and during like all these massive, massive empires that these people had, the Ottoman Empire,
Oh.
nothing, gone. And now, whatever empires we have here today, sometimes it might look like their power might be insurmountable,
Mm,
but
but
I
within
bet you that they will have their own day. where they will go. It's just a cycle, and they will all come and they will be defeated. The book will be opened against them too, and they will be gone. That's all.
Mm,
And our job
mm,
is to try to be faithful while we live in Babylon until
mm.
the new, that new relationship between heaven and earth comes about. But we just do our
That's
bit
true.
and stay faithful. All
Yeah.
right.
I think this is a very good. It's a true test of faith as well. Like the fact that we don't know, no one knows when that time comes. And I think that's the whole point of it. Like you've emphasized, but I'm just deep in it. I'm like, that's
Mm,
the true test, because what I'm thinking of all these people who are like from different Christian denominations who are trying to calculate it. I'm thinking, what is the point? Why are you trying to pinpoint a specific day? Like, what are you trying to prepare for that day? But is that your heart? Like your heart should already be like aligned with God, like aligned with the way of Jesus, so
mm,
that regardless of when the time comes. So it just emphasizes that for me. Like I'm like, what is the
mm,
point? Why are people trying to figure out that day? Like you should really see that as the test of your faith, like regardless of when it could happen tomorrow. So
mm,
are you ready,
mm,
kind of vibes. So that is really true.
mm,
And I like how you also said that. I think when you think about it, it's not always gonna be a clear cut for us, those who are believers. We're gonna have the dips, the bad times, and then the good
mm,
times as well. And for
mm,
me, like I've definitely experienced a stagnancy where I'm like, nothing. I feel like nothing is happening. So
mm,
sometimes my energy is like, I sometimes I don't even have the energy to even read the Bible, because it seems so mundane. It seems like same thing every day. But
mm,
after I've heard now, I'm like, actually no, it's about the true test of faith, like the Daniels, like those who were in the exile or whatever. Like even though they seem like the situation was bleak, they were still like in their faith. And I don't know how to explain it,
yeah.
but I've definitely
Yeah,
taken
I
away
get,
from it.
yeah, I get that. Yeah,
Mm,
it was bleak. It looked,
yeah,
from where they were standing,
exactly.
Babylon was one of the big, great empires of the ancient world. From where they were standing, it looks impossible that this empire would
Yeah,
grow.
you
But
get it.
Babylon is consigned to the history books only.
Mm, mm,
And but look at the march, and even though it faces its own issues, but the march that Jesus started with the Christians and that world, that's still lasting, right?
mm,
Loads of,
mm,
loads of people and loads of things have risen out of the world that Jesus has, the kingdom that Jesus has established.
mm.
So we should
Things are happening. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, we should, we should remember that. um
Mm,
that's the thing, is that all this is I know the book of Daniel as well, and maybe these chapters, they kind of have a very bleak tone, but all
yeah.
this imagery and all these beasts and this and that, they are actually they're written in a way to give people hope that,
Mm,
you know and that's the whole point of what Daniel is writing, is to actually to give people hope that, what, God is doing something.
mm,
All these
mm.
fires and all this evil and all these beasts that gets brought up and created, they'll meet their end.
Yeah,
God's
that's true.
people always should prevail.
Exactly.
And
All right, cool. That's it. Any questions? We managed to get through Matthew 24.
Yeah.
Cool. Any questions, thoughts, anything someone wants to add? No.
no,
No, not at the moment. I need to digest everything.
Cool. Perfect. Perfect. That's cool. And I guess, yeah, next time we'll continue, and just when we're going towards going towards the crucifixion. All this in this space of a short space of time.
Wow.
Fantastic. Cool. Yeah, I guess let's end. Roberta, if you don't mind closing prayer.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for nominating me. Let us pray. Dear God, I just want to thank you so much for this evening that we have all been able to gather here and actually look into your word. I'm very grateful for this platform, and I'm sure we all are as well, that it is something where we can actually go a bit deeper beyond what we read ourselves, but we can come and actually learn a bit more and have insight into your word and what it meant, like what it really means, like your words and looking at it, the context and everything. It just brings us light. And I'm very grateful, Lord, that we have this opportunity. You have blessed us, oh God, with the resources and all these things that people have studied so that we can also come and learn for them. So thank you, God, for that. And we just pray that you keep helping us through this journey of life, this faith, oh God, though we don't know when the time of the Son of Man coming will be near. We just have to be steadfast in our faith and be alert. Help us to be alert and prepared, regardless of what our situations may say. Help us to keep going. And Father, Lord, we know that you will never leave us nor forsake us. So we are very grateful to you on that, and we're holding on to your word. Build us up, Lord, like the Daniels and his other friends that were working and even in the exile. Help us so that we will be able to know the truth and we will live in the truth, especially in a world where there are opposing kingdoms, the self-interest, all these things that are around us that are trying to change our minds or to make our minds feel like that is the truth. But we just know that your truth is your word, and we want to live in the truth. So help us, Lord, to do so. In Jesus' mighty name. And I also pray for the rest of the week as we have our different locations that we are going to and different things we're doing. We just pray that you be with us, be a constant reminder of us, of that you have given us the Spirit. You've also given us your word, that you are never leaving us. So we just pray that you consider to be with us, protect us, bless us, and guide us. In Jesus' mighty name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
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 Thank you.